Now, there are many civilizations who speak about, coming from the stars or beings coming from the stars. Now, if you're looking out there and you believe this is where you come from, in order for you to understand, where you come from and your purpose on this planet, then you must first study the stars. So, of course, when you look out there, what do you see? They seen the constellations, they seen the stars, they seen the 5 planets that's visible to the naked eye. You see the sun, of course, you see the moon. So, we have basically 88 constellations that we know of. Now, we also know that 12 of those constellations, basically our sun, the planets, and the moon go through these 12 constellations, the zodiac. So this is stuff that you could see, and calculate. And this is what the ancients did. They took note of these things. They took note that the sun passed through a certain constellation, during a certain time. The same thing with the sun and the planets. So they calculated this stuff because, of course, if you believe that you come from space, you are paying attention to what's out there because it's so much stuff. Have you ever been to a place or a country where at night, I remember out to sea when I was in the Navy, sometimes being on the boat was to go to the flight deck at night. And when you look up, it's almost like being on a spaceship in outer space because the stars and everything it's so clear out at sea. You can see everything. It looks crazy. It's a crazy view that a lot of people don't get a chance to see. And I can imagine back then that, they'd probably seen the universe the same way, and it probably was amazing to them, and they probably seen stuff flying back and forth and, what have you. So, they paid attention, they cataloged this stuff, and they wrote it down over the years, over thousands of years. So, of course, when you notice things like when the sun is in this constellation, it's colder here or it's warmer here, you take note of this kind of stuff. So, of course, over time, as you're paying attention, you will notice things like when the sun is in this constellation, that we have winter or we have summer or the leaves start to die, things of that nature. So, of course, you will look at the stars as somehow, controlling what takes place on the planet. And this is how a lot of the, you can call them primitives or, the ancients looked at things like when this constellation appears, we don't see the buffalo no more. So, food is scarce or things don't grow. So, of course, to them, not having the same kind of mindset that we have, they looked at this stuff as, gods, and they deified the constellations. And, different civilizations saw different things. They deified them based upon the actions or the animals or whatever it looked like to them, which is why a lot of different civilizations have different constellations. We don't have the rat like the Chinese do. So, different constellations meant different things to different civilizations, different groups of people. And when you understand the culture, you can understand why they use a lot of the animals and things that they do. But, so they deified these things. And a lot of people, I'm not going to say it was worship. It was just so much as taking notice of what they seen in the heavens. And, we look at stuff as, worship and this and that. It's not, the same to them. Of course, if this constellation is bringing abundance of life or food to my people, then of course I'm going to celebrate every time the sun is in its constellation. They have their sun gods as well as the Egyptians. So we know about Quetzalcoatl, who is basically the winged serpent. And when you go down to Chichen Itza in Mexico, and of course they have the pyramid down there as well. Now, as I was saying before, all of this, now remember, we're talking about astrology here. We're talking about the sun. This is the sun. A lot of people might think, well, they crazy for spending all them hours building that huge pyramid for, just because sunspots look like a winged serpent. It sounds crazy. It's going to make a lot of sense later. But, as I said, this stuff is the basis of religion. This is where all the stuff comes from. When you look at it, you can find it everywhere. Whenever you find something that's ancient, that has an ancient story attached to it, I guarantee you're going to look in the Bible, the Quran, or Torah, and you're going to find a similar story or somebody trying to rip it off. And it has to always do with religion. So you have Quetzalcoatl, which is the winged serpent that is basically speaking about the sun. And what a lot of people don't realize is the Mormons believe that Quetzalcoatl is basically the resurrected Jesus Christ. And yes, they actually believe this. So they believe that Jesus basically was in America, and he came and appeared and talked to the neophytes, who they believe were some Indians, the Hopewell Indians. They believe they were the Hopewell Indians. So when you read Third Neophyte or Nephi in the Book of Mormon, something we have not touched on in any of my videos, the Book of Mormon and some of these other weird religions, which I'm going to start touching on a little bit more so you can see the fuckery, the foolery, that's in a lot of this stuff and where it comes from. So when you read in Third Neophyte, I'm just going to read 12 and 13, just so you can understand. So it says, Jesus calls the 12 disciples. He delivers to the neophytes a discourse similar to the Sermon on the Mount. He speaks the Beatitudes, which basically is like grace or the benediction. He speaks the Beatitudes. His teachings transcend and take precedence over the law of Moses. Men are commanded to be perfect, even as he and his Father are perfect. 13 says, Jesus teaches the neophytes the Lord's Prayer. They are to lay up treasures in heaven. The 12 disciples and their ministry are commanded to take no thought for temporal things. Now, I want you to pay attention. Take a look. Now you can see it's a pyramid, and it's basically shaped just like the pyramid in, Chichen Itza, the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, the serpent of the sun, or the sun serpent, or the winged serpent. So we know what? Jesus is the sun. So Jesus, they're basically telling you in the Book of Mormon, Jesus is the sun. So here you have Jesus coming down the pyramid, and it's representing Quetzalcoatl, who represents the winged serpent that represents the sunspots that basically is talking about the sun. So it all goes back to the sun. So I want you to understand what we're dealing with here. And you're going to find this a lot. We're going to see this a lot throughout the video. That, as I said, when you start going back and looking at a lot of these stories, these ancient stories, they deal with astrology and have mythological stories and stuff like that. You're going to find Christianity or some religion ripping it off. And you can see just the example here. Now, for anybody who knew about the Chichen Itza and Quetzalcoatl and everything like that, and understand what it pertains to, and see that it's talking about the sun, it's easy for you to make that connection of Jesus and the sun. So when we talk about the whole winged sun disk, a winged sun disk, we found it in Kemet. But then when we look at Malachi 4:2, it says here, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness, Son, S-U-N, of righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. Now, the Bible is replete with astrology. You got to understand that. So we know Greek mythology is all in the Old Testament, but what about the New Testament? Okay, so again, we look at Virgo. We look at the constellation Virgo. What you have is the movement of the sun, and what it does is it comes into the constellation Virgo, and as it's coming into, following its rotation into the constellation Virgo, you have, when it makes contact, it looking like Virgo, the Virgin, being pregnant. Now, as the sun continues its course, you have the sun coming out basically between the legs of Virgo, having it seem as if, a virgin birth, has been done. So you have Virgo giving birth to the sun. And that's all basically it is. Virgo giving birth to the sun, Virgo the Virgin, you have a virgin birth. It's all astrology. This is where the shit comes from. And it's crazy that when you look at the cycle and you see this being done, you can see clearly where they got the concept of a virgin birth. Now, when we read Revelations 12, it's talking about this. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Again, we have Virgo. When you look at Virgo, you have at the bottom of her foot, you can see clearly the moon and its rotation going through its cycle at the foot of Virgo. You can see Virgo being bathed with the sun. This is all talking about the constellations, talking about what's happening in the universe. You can see over top of her head, Leo. Leo can be considered the 12-starred crown that they're referring to, but there are also 12 stars, above her head. So we can consider Leo being the crown that it's talking about. So again, when you look at this stuff, astronomy, astrology, it's all stuff they got from the heavens. As I said, this is where this stuff comes from, and this is the basis of modern day religion. And same thing with Revelation 6. When you look at Revelation 6, it says, it's talking about the seals being open. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow. And that one is pretty clear that it's Sagittarius because of the bow. So it's easy stuff. When you pay attention, you can see what the stuff is really talking about. So now we can do this basically all day and go through stories or constellations and find stories in the Bible that parallel, that we can see that they clearly stole from an ancient story that deals with astrology or an ancient story from an ancient civilization. We see this all the time. You could probably understand that a lot of the stuff that I do talk about and get into is basically the occult or esoteric knowledge, which esoteric basically means, knowledge that only people with certain knowledge will understand. And we know there are secret societies, mystery schools, and people who have the wealth of knowledge that they do not want to share with the public for, whatever reason. But we also know, and, because we do research and because this is what we are into, that these secret societies, these people who have been in secret societies and in mystery schools and have learned this knowledge, people like myself as well, we teach. And the occult releases a lot of information that is coded with the secrets that they don't want to reveal, straightforward. So if you get into occult knowledge, occult science, a lot of it is esoteric, meaning that, you have to have a certain understanding of knowledge to understand what the subject is about, what they're actually talking about in a lot of esoteric books. So most of the terminology in the occult is in Greek. They use Greek words or Latin words. And this is one of the ways that you can know if somebody is in a secret society or is into the occult by the terms that they use. So you're speaking with somebody, and if you're a Mason and they use certain terms that is only spoken in the lodge, or that Masons use as common words, then you know that this person is most likely a Mason or is into the occult. So like we call planets, it's a planet. But they call planets theoi. Theoi means the gods. And from theoi, we get aletheia. Aletheia means the breath of God. Translated into Greek, it means truth and enlightenment. So understand, like in the occult and secret societies, truth and enlightenment is God. Plain and simple. Knowledge is God. You can't get no more clear than that. This is what they are talking about every time. Whenever you hear a person speak about God that is a Mason, they are talking about truth and enlightenment. The trick is to fool you into thinking they're talking about Jesus or, Jesus Pop, Jesus Daddy. And they're talking about truth and enlightenment, which is what Jesus represents. So this is why at award shows, this is why rappers and people who are supposed to be in these secret societies or be Masons can wear the Jesus piece. This is why they wear it. This is why they thank Jesus and why they thank God, because they are thinking truth and knowledge, truth and enlightenment. And they have a deeper understanding of what Jesus is and what he represents. Now, at the same time, they are also thinking they're white masters who put them in place and power, because if you wear the Ankh, it is a symbol for life, also truth and knowledge. So, I would prefer to wear an Ankh, which I always wear Ankh. People always ask me about it. I have a lot of these in various forms. it's also a symbol for truth and enlightenment. So it means you understand, you get it, you are conscious. So now getting back to Aletheia or Aletheia, which is a major symbol for the occult. Aletheia basically meaning the breath of God or truth and enlightenment. When you really get down to it, Aletheia is basically the conscious mind of man. So if you Google it, if you look up the name Aletheia, you'll see basically a bunch of women. This is what it looks like. And you'll see a bunch of companies with that same name, Aletheia, Aletheia. It's a lot of people who have that name because they understand what it represents. They understand that it has power in it. There is power in names. You have to understand what people give their energy to. If you understand what energy means, if you give me your energy, positive energy to something, and you adopt that symbol or you adopt that name, then you are receiving that positive energy. And a lot of people look at that as spooky stuff, but they don't get it. We have been tricked into, giving ourselves these weird ghetto ass names like, Killer Mike, Tech 90 Shots, all kinds of weird names that has negativity attached to the name. And these people are, giving good positive energy to such a negative, symbol. And, instead of them receiving, what the symbol really represents, they are getting your good energy because you are worshiping these negative names. And then when you go ahead and take that name for yourself, you are not getting the positive energy because nobody is worshiping you. You're getting all the negative energy that is behind a name that has to do with killing or murder, the shooter, stuff like that. And you're absorbing the real negative energy of that name. Meanwhile, the celebrity or, the rap star with that negative name is getting positive energy from you through their negative name. So you have to understand how energy works. And again, it sounds like spooky stuff, but you see the results and why these people are on top with these names, and while other people who got these other names like Pookie and Killer J and all kinds of stuff like that, where they at? They're either in prison or, or dead and gone. So you have to understand that one of the things that the occult always speaks about is having names that deals with power, and they always do. If you look at movies that they put out, if you look at just general names that they have, stuff they have in their homes, these people, they understand energy and what it attracts. So by you just having a Buddha in your house, you are putting a lot of positive energy in your home. You just having an Ankh in your house, it's a lot of positive energy attached to that. You have to learn how to then, tap into this stuff and understand what it's talking about. And I'm going to put out a video, I think right after this, that's going to really get into meditation and understanding energy a lot more, how to work with it. So that's probably going to be coming out after this because I get so many requests for this kind of video. But I'm going to take you through what I do and my practices and stuff you need to really understand about energy and how to start working it on this small level and start bringing it up, because your goal is to eventually, as I said, affect your dream world, your dream state, and what you are dreaming about, to differentiate between movies, what is reality and what you saw on TV. This is hard. It takes a long time, but you got to start somewhere. We're going to get into that, but you got to understand, the power in names, the power that's in symbols and why they use it. And because they are using it, they are on top and basically controlling everything. So now I know a lot of people are going to say, well, I ain't giving my child one of these weirdo white people names or one of these crazy names. And, again, you got to understand the power in names. Like even the Pope, when a Pope is crowned, the new Pope, he changes his entire name. It's the same thing in the military. When you gain a higher rank, your name changes. You become, go from a lieutenant junior grade to a lieutenant, to a lieutenant commander, to a commander, captain, and so on and so forth. Now, these new names, these new ranks instill power, of course. We know that an admiral is a higher rank than, a captain. So if you see an admiral, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, he outranks you. So the power that he gets, the respect that he gets goes with that name and with that title. Now, it's weird in the military and the Navy that an admiral outranks a captain. But if that admiral is on a ship where a captain is the CO, the commanding officer, then as long as that admiral is on the ship, he is outranked by the captain, by the commanding officer of the ship. That only makes sense anyway. But, Aletheia, the reason why it's a woman, the reason why, it represents truth and enlightenment is because the woman is, of course, the true human, the true first being on this planet. And that's another thing that you get into with the occult, and the reason why, a lot of secret organizations really, secret societies really worship the woman. Even in Catholicism, it's more Mary worship than Jesus worship, as you can see, because the woman is the true one, the true divine being. And, it should be a black woman there because, of course, we all come from her. So the woman is worshiped. The woman is looked at as being the truth. Men, we come from women. The races come from, women. So we have no clue on the true power and potential that a woman has. I suspect that they do, which is why they try to suppress her power, because if she can have the power to mutate and create a man and then mutate and create the white race and so on and so forth, who knows what, she's really capable of. But this is why they choose the woman. The Statue of Liberty, a woman. You look at the Columbia symbol with the woman holding up the torch. Same thing like the Statue of Liberty holding up the torch, which basically means, truth and enlightenment, knowledge. So you start connecting these things and start understanding why certain things are in certain places. So when you start getting into this stuff, you find out a lot of things. And when you eventually have the balls to start digging into Satanism and the occult and esoteric studies, you find out a lot about Aletheia. So now I want to read a little bit of this stuff here so you understand what they're talking about in the occult, what this dogma is really about. Now it says here, Aletheia is our God in dogma. It says here, Aletheia is the breath of God or life, the conscious mind of man. And what does Soma find its support? Now understand, Soma is an ancient plant, one of the most sacred plants of the ancient world. It's supposed to give you like rejuvenation and longevity, and it was only known to people who was initiated in the highest orders. It says, what does initiation find its support? Truth, therefore, they say, to the one who is initiated, speak the truth. For it is in the truth that initiation finds its support. And what does truth find its support? The heart, said Yajnavalkya, who was basically this ancient philosopher who lived in the 6th and 7th century BCE. He was basically like a yogi. He was into Hinduism and everything like that. One of the people who I've studied for a long time. And when we'll get to that point, because we have to get into Hinduism and everything like that and these other ancient religions, because there's a lot with it. And what you'll find out is a lot of the mystics, a lot of the people in the mystery schools like Blavatsky, who traveled to Tibet and was really into Hinduism and everything like that, you will see that they was really into this stuff, and that a lot of the information that we get in the occult world comes from a lot of these ancient mystics and yogis and stuff like that, because they was really into mysticism, into consciousness. And a lot of them are what we can call the Jedi. If you really want to get deep into it, they are the good side of the force. And, we're going to get into all that. The heart, says Yajnavalkya, for through the heart, one knows the truth. Therefore, it is in the heart that the truth finds its support. Just so, Yajnavalkya, this cause of truth, for the acceptance of which by science and the Christian world I am ready to lay down my life without a moment's hesitation. Those who know me will know I speak sincerely and say but what I feel, because I study occultism or ancient spiritualism. I am thought an enemy to the cause of truth, pure and simple. Only the theogony of the ancient wisdom religion may afford a glimpse of the truth. And theogony basically means the ascension of the gods, the genealogy, I should say, of the gods. Now, man cannot possess truth, aletheia, except he participates in the gnosis. So we may say now, no man can know the truth unless he studies the secrets of the pleroma of the occult, of occultism. So Pleroma is basically a spiritual realm, or the spiritual universe, for those of you who want to understand that. So no man can know the truth unless he studies the secret of the pleroma of occultism. And these secrets are all in the theogony of the ancient wisdom religion, which is the aletheia of occult science. Okay, that's the important part. And then nature will give up her secrets to those who seek truth for its own sake. Nature gives up her innermost secrets and imparts true wisdom only to him who seeks truth for its own sake and who craves for knowledge in order to confer benefits on others, not on his own unimportant personality. So this is just some of the writings of occultism, and a lot of people, this stuff you can find in a lot of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky's books. A lot of, if you really get into Manly P. Hall, I know he was like a major 33rd degree Mason, but before he died, when he was old and didn't give a fuck, he revealed a lot of information. But you have to understand, this represents the spine and this serpentine energy. So now when you understand this, when you understand what the Jed is, and when you understand energy and consciousness, then this right here will make a lot more sense to you. Take a look. Now, when a lot of people saw this, they first thought was electricity. And that's not a bad thought. You know, as I'll explain later, you're not wrong to say electricity here, but this represents Osiris, and Osiris having the control over consciousness and energy. This is why the hands are grabbing the serpent. It's having control over the reptilian energies, the reptilian brain. You cannot have control or move your arms or, control on a physical sense, as you would think you're controlling something with your hands. You're physically controlling something. But on a spiritual sense, they tried to represent it with the arms grabbing the serpent or the serpentine energy. So when you look at this, again, when you understand what the Jed is, because that is the Jed column right there, or the Jed pillar. They have different names for it, but it's talking about the same thing. This is Osiris grasping control of the serpentine energy. Now understand, this design, our spine, is perfectly designed to handle energy. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the transfer of consciousness. Consciousness transferring energy into physical material, movement, matter, or what have you. So you're talking about the transfer of energy. Our spine is designed perfectly to handle the transfer of energy. The Jed is talking about that. Now, when you go out and you look at power plants, you see this design. Look around, you'll see it. Look at power plants. You'll see that design looks just like the Jed. Look at spark plugs. You see the same design. When you look around at a lot of movies that you've probably seen before, you'll see this design is dealing with the energy of the brain, or the consciousness creating this energy that travels down the spine, which causes you to move, plain and simple, to react with reality, the physical world. And this is what it's talking about. Power Rangers, Zordon, you see the electric things on the side. You'll see this stuff a lot in a lot of places. Back again to Demolition Man. Remember, on Demolition Man, remember the little glow sticks they had, those sticks that he used when he shot the guy on top of the head. You see the electric created there, but you look at the design, it's just like the Jed, trying to tell you something. But this design is perfect for transferring energy, and they understand that, and it's basically represented by, the spine, the spinal column, or the Jed, which is Osiris. And Osiris is a few things, but this, in this aspect, is what it's talking about when it's referring to Osiris. It's talking about the control of energy, plain and simple. So now when you look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, when you look at plate 2, which is the hymn to Osiris, you see the Jed there. You see the Jed. You don't see the normal representation or drawing of Osiris, but the Jed is there. This is the hymn to Osiris, so it's talking about Osiris. So, the Jed, you'll see it all over the place. I mean, when you kind of sort of look at the base of a light bulb, it looks like a Jed. You look at the king on a chessboard, it looks like a Jed in certain chessboards. You see it in so many different places. The Jed is also called, as I said, the Jed column or the Jed pillar. The Jed is also called the House of Osiris. And it's funny when you look at Chinese pagodas, they sort of kind of look like the Jed a little bit when you look at them. So, it's everywhere. It's in so many different places when you take a look at it. And, you see it in a lot of places around the world. The medical caduceus, you see, it's basically representing the serpentine energy, the masculine and feminine energy, Kundalini rising. And you see it's basically going up, basically the spine, what it's supposed to represent. And the two wings basically would be the corpus callosum. And it's leading to the third eye. That's basically that little round thing, the little ball on the top it's talking about. So Egyptian high alchemy is basically about gathering that energy, as I said. Gathering that energy so that just like the medical caduceus, you have the serpentine energy, you have the masculine, feminine energy, you have the higher brain, lower brain. The energies going up the spine or going up the Jed in order to reach basically the third eye. So you have the Jedi. This is where they get it from. This is what it's talking about, becoming a Jedi. Yoda was green like Osiris. He looked like a reptilian, didn't he? This is what it's talking about. This is what all this stuff is alluding to when you understand how to put it together. And when you start looking at movies and understand how to break down the esoteric meaning, the whole metaphysics of it. It's talking about the Jedi, and it's what the Jedi is talking about. They're talking about the Jed, spine, Osiris. They're talking about Kundalini rising, the energy. They're talking about Egyptian high alchemy, the gathering of this energy in order to rise in enlightenment, to gain control of consciousness and awareness. Awareness is a major thing. Let me explain something to you, because a lot of people don't think like me. A lot of people don't think like this, I should say. But you have to think about how much your brain processes a day. Now, it is said that the brain processes about 70,000 thoughts per day. 70,000. That's a lot. If you had conscious control over 70,000 thoughts, you would never move. You would sit still, because there is no way it will be time for energy to be sent, to the body to produce movement. You're too busy being stuck every millisecond on a thought. So, this tells you, this is how powerful the subconscious mind is. It is so much power there. I mean, even if you can't understand the implications of that, 70,000, and this goes into like vibration, vibrating on different frequencies, and we're going to get into all that down the line. But remember, like between 50 and like 90 hertz or something like that is supposed to be like where we are. Anybody that's 80 and over is considered a genius. If you're vibrating at about 55, 54, this is where sickness occurs. And if you're vibrating under 45, this is where cancer occurs. So this is what it's talking about. So you talking about being at a state of being, a state of consciousness, a state of energy that, allows you to surpass normal man and become something different, something great. Me just now coming back from Kemet, the first time I was there, I was stupid. I mean, I knew nothing. And it's embarrassing almost. Like my thoughts then was like, they somehow did this. Cause I just didn't understand the sheer weight and the fact that at that time we didn't have a crane that can do what they did. So, how the hell? I just didn't understand. It was just, I got talked into it, took the trip, and was ignorant the whole time. And it did change my life as far as going down to, to Karnak and going down to Abu Simbel and seeing the Ramses statues and everything like that, and seeing how Abu Simbel is like, everything Ramses. And when you go from the south of Kemet up to the north all along, everywhere you go, I mean, you find traces of Ramses. He really was a big deal in Kemet, and that's what really kind of sparked my interest with the Bible, as far as the Bible definitely lied about Ramses. So, and going there and seeing so many of the, magnificent structures, and going into the pyramids, standing on the pyramids and looking at everything, and then understanding the geometry and math and everything that surrounds the mystery of these structures, we really got to dig into it and understand what is that really speaking to. So let's go to the Temple of Man, the Great Karnak Temple at Luxor. This is one of many temples that have a lot of hidden occult esoteric meanings. And as a lot of people know, they basically hid, the human body, from infancy up to, adulthood inside the temple. When you go into different chambers, you have, skulls in different chambers, skull sizes from, a newborn up to like a 19-year-old, and the different chambers, the covered chambers. You have the newborn skull shape in the Temple of Karnak. So, they really designed this temple to show man. And it's really well hidden. If you're a person without, deep esoteric knowledge, occult knowledge, things only taught in the mystery schools, you wouldn't pick up on this stuff. It's not even subtle. The stuff is very well hidden to the point where, when you're walking through it, it's just no way you're going to know what it is. You're just going to look at it and see the pillars and see everything that's there. And it's designed for you to just kind of sort of get lost and, be standing in awe of the pillars and, all the hieroglyphics and what have you. But hidden well within the structure is very many esoteric symbols and, Egyptian hieroglyphics that mark the body. So as you walking up towards the Temple of Karnak and the south wall, you'll see right there on the wall, there are chariots, and you have archers on these chariots. And when you look at the placement of the archers on the chariot, right where the wall is, it symbolizes the bottom of the foot. So you have archers symbolizing the arch of the foot. So when you look at that, upon first inspection, I got to zoom in a little bit. It's tough to see, worn down with age. But when you look at it, it's something that you'll just look at and say, oh, well, and you'll keep moving. And as you go through the Great Karnak Temple, you'll find in different rooms, different chambers, things on the wall that lead to, the understanding of the human body. For instance, you go to the west wall and you have 13 horses, fully, harnessed horses. And it's representing the spine. That's where the spine would be if you look at it as far as the body. And you have, the 13 horses representing the 13 vertebrae, in the spine. So it's things like this that you find as you keep going through the temple, and you'll start to begin to understand, if you have esoteric knowledge, what it is. So when you get to, of course, the brain, where there's a lot going on, you see the same type of things happening there. So now when you start to make your way towards the head, you have chamber 1 or room 1, which would be where the pineal gland is. They call it the secret chamber. Now you look over to room 4. Room 4 is where the eye would be. But also what's interesting about room 4, when you start to look along the walls, you see the twisted flag symbol, or the flag symbol, which sort of looks like this. Now, what's interesting about the flag symbol is the flag symbol, one, the Egyptians used to make cloth, clothes out of. But when you look at that symbol, it looks exactly like the olfactory bulb, which is the prefrontal nerve or prefrontal vertebrae that deals with our sense of smell. When you look at it, you see how it splits. Now, when you look at it in relation to the temple, the head, you see it matches up right where room 4 is. Now, the interesting thing about that, when you look right before that, it's right where Wajet will be on the uraeus. You look in front of it, you see the serpent or Wajet on the uraeus would be right there. Now, the interesting thing about that is that snakes have the olfactory bulb. They have an olfactory system just like us that deals with smell. And another interesting thing is when you look at the symbol for the flax or the twisted flax, it looks exactly like a snake's tongue. which they use their tongue to smell. So this is one of the more interesting things that we see that they put in there, and they put very intricate, detailed things in symbols. They left symbols that if you do not understand the body deeply, you would never make that connection. So the simple fact that they put the twisted flag symbol there in the same room, in room 4, where it would be, prefrontal, on the prefrontal lobe, the prefrontal brain, is amazing. And that it matches up with Wajet, and that deals with the serpent. I mean, all of that is unbelievable. But, let's get into this whole thing. Now, for the most part, the person that everybody gives credit to for the whole Anunnaki story and the Sumerian text and everything like that is Zecharia Sitchin. The thing is this. Zecharia Sitchin, as I talked about before, is a Mason. 32nd degree Freemason, embarking on what is called the Great Work, or the Great Lie, the Great Deception, something that is required in order to gain 33rd degree. And this is what this is all about. So you got to understand who you get your information from. Now, Bill Cooper put out the video years ago of Sitchin at the Masonic Lodge trying to cover up his face. And we've seen him with Jordan Maxwell, the whole Masonic handshake. It's a lot of information out there about Sitchin and Freemasonry and everything like that. So it's not hard to make that connection and understand exactly what's going on here. But the fact that, Sitchin was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and that, he basically had a whole special, on the Sci-Fi Channel talking about the Anunnaki and talking about everything that, Sumerian text is supposedly saying in the, Emerald Tablets. There's only a handful of people on the planet that reads ancient Sumerian and that understands about the Emerald Tablets, and most of them, almost all of them, call Sitchin a fraud. See a whole room full of people, some covering their face, and you see these secret societies that we have, the Rosicrucian, Freemasonry, Knights Templar, the Shriners, and all this, secret societies. You got to understand that there's people that get paid to do this. Sitchin made millions of dollars off of his books and him, basically leading these trips to Africa and getting people to pay crazy kinds of money to come out there to see these fictional places that he came up with. And it's a lot of money in it. So I always tell people, when you believe certain things, especially like the Bible, the Hebrews who want to believe that we curse and all this stuff like that, when you start getting into this stuff, it is pushing us further away from who we truly are and not getting into the real truth about our history. So now, as I said before, to me, the key to all this, dinosaurs, dragons, the Bible. And when you start to really get into understanding these things, it starts to point itself out. The truth starts to slowly, because you have to start from the beginning. You got to go back. And that's the thing. They want to talk about, they tell us 65 million years ago, dinosaurs exist. And they went extinct before man came into being. But we found too much proof, too much evidence of humans and dinosaurs coexisting on this planet. And the Bible talks about this, when you understand, which we'll get into. And there's too much. It's just so much that you cannot ignore, especially the imagery and the rituals and the celebrations that go on that is surrounding dinosaurs, or surrounding dragons, I should say, which we know, as I said before, they were called dragons, not dinosaurs. Dinosaurs is a later name, 19th century. So they can't ignore this stuff. Got to look at it. We got to pay attention to what this stuff is really talking about and how deep it is. And it's deep, as you'll see. So we have the ancients, so many depictions and drawings of dinosaurs, proving that they must have coexisted, because no way they could draw these dinosaurs if they didn't see them. You have all the stories from, the Sumerian culture, the ancient Egyptians, even the Asians talking about these dragons, all these mythologies and stories everywhere, stuff that we can't ignore. So even if we want to go by the whole Sumerian story about this reptilian race, altering the DNA of man, that is implying that, man was already here. It's the same thing with the Bible. The Bible already basically implying that our DNA, or man, was fabricated, and that, there was a man, or a perfect man, before us. at one point. Before what we know today as man, there was a perfect man that was altered to create what we have today. And it's also symbolized by the fall of man. Man was perfect, then it was the fall of man, and then we get what we have today. So again, you can't ignore this stuff. You got to put it together, and the pieces fit in very, very unbelievable ways when you start to pay attention. So now, Adam and Eve in the garden is representing perfect man. Man as it was at some point, until the serpent came and changed that. Now, as I said, it's a lot of different things we can get from the Garden of Eden story. Now, we know for a fact, 100%, dinosaurs existed and they ruled on this planet. Is it far-fetched to believe that there could be or could have been a reptilian race similar to us during that time? No, it's not far-fetched to think that. It's something that we really have to entertain and think about, because there's too much going on here with this dinosaur or this reptilian reference. So when you begin to understand, we see that the Adam and Eve in the garden representing perfect man, the serpent is representing the reptilian who came and changed man into what we are today, came and altered man. So when you look at the story, this is exactly what it's telling us. You had perfect man representing something different, until the serpent came, or reptilian came and changed that. It's going to make a lot of sense later. Came and changed that whole thing. And the Bible talks about, all the creeping things and all the animals and everything that was created before man, and that fits, with evolution theory. But, when we take a look at this whole, reptilian thing and begin to understand how we fit in with it, in evolution, you had reptilians, mammals, and birds were the last three to basically evolve on the evolutionary scale, on the chart. So we know, they tell us that humans and primates share a common ancestor. Well, birds also share that common ancestor with us. And it's, weird to see that the last three, humans or mammals, reptilians, and birds, share this common ancestor. So we know that you have this whole missing link. Our lives as well is basically conducive to this system. And, if you understand that, your reality is basically based on what you believe and perceive. So if you understand this, then you need to control what people believe and perceive. If you do that effectively, you can control their reality. And this is what they have effectively done with us. And a lot of people are not understanding this, that your reality is being controlled because they are controlling what you believe and perceive. And they have done so since birth. You have been brought up in a system to where people have been programmed to push out a belief system. We are following a pattern that people who came before us have followed and have brought up and have built and made strong for us to follow as well. We are not following anything that we create ourselves. This is a system that we're following. And a lot of people just don't fathom that you are born almost as if, somebody put you into a maze. And the purpose of life is to get to the end of that maze. Some people will, some people will not. But you have to realize that you are one inside of a maze, and that outside this maze, there is, real life. There is stuff going on. There is powerful people who put this stuff in motion. And that if you can run the maze, you can be, stand with those powerful people. But first, you got to get through the maze. You have to realize, one, that you are in a maze, that this is a trap, this is a plan. This is, every turn you make, something is there to lead you to either the right direction that's going to take you out, or the wrong direction that's going to leave you, at a dead end. So unless you understand, one, you're in a maze, you're never going to make it out. And this is the problem. A lot of people don't realize how this stuff works, and that what you put into your psyche, what you put into your consciousness, what you perceive and what you believe is one of the main issues that causes you to be where you are. So us living in this society, we are bound by the rules of this society. We are, dealing with that, coupled with this illusion of freedom, that you have this freedom of choice and you're free and you can do whatever you want. It's an illusion. There are rules, and you are bound by the system and its rules, plain and simple. So then when you look at that and understand that, the direction that you are going, that you are headed, has been given to you. You don't have a choice when people are giving you multiple choices. You didn't pick none of the choices. All of the choices was given to you. So how are you choosing? If you understand what I'm saying. So it's like if I'm saying, if you want a car, I'm going to give you 6 cars. You pick one. You didn't pick any of the cars. I picked all the cars. You're going to pick one. So your choice is really going to be one of my choices. You didn't walk over there and say, I want that one. I gave you 6 choices. You chose from my choices. This is basically what's going on. So our choices that we have and the path that we could take in life has been given to us. And we have been following this path that we have seen played out, before us. So the whole pattern of you go to school, graduate, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house, you work till you die. You have kids, you work till you die. Those kids repeat that cycle, so on and so forth. And it's basically what the pattern is. And it's like within that, there are so many different what we call traditions. So, you buy a wedding ring, a certain carat, or you wear white wedding dress. You have this at the wedding. The bride wears this or the groom does that. Traditions, we call them, but there are traditions that exist within so many different other families. They're not traditions. These are, choices that's been put out there for us to choose from. Things that we've seen people do and we chose to do it based upon this system, based upon, how we live in this society. So these are societal things that we are choosing to go to school and go to college and work for these people for the rest of our life until we die, till we can't walk anymore, till we can't, even, go to the bathroom normally. And that's it. You die, your kids repeat the process, you start over. And this is it. This is what's taking place. So again, when we talk about manifestation, you got to understand that this is not something spooky. You got to understand one, this is something that is ancient, that has been talked about in ancient Kemet, as we'll get into. And, you really got to grasp that, manifestation is just something that we cannot ignore. And it's part of our purpose in being here. So it says here, there are traditions going back to the beginning of recorded human history, which speak of the power of manifestation and the law of attraction. Manifestation is the ability of any human being to use certain techniques to manifest what he or she desires. The law of attraction, more accurately laws, that's important, we're going to get into this, are the principles which you can use to manifest your desires. There's nothing mysterious about this. Although the early teachings of manifestation tried to hide their teachings in secrecy and mystery and tried to limit the knowledge for a select few who had undergone initiation rituals of one kind or another. The fact is, this knowledge is now and always has been available to everyone, or at least to those who care to look for it. And manifesting your desire is a healthy way to live. Now, understand the ancient Egyptians talked about manifestation through music. They talked about manifestation all the time. In fact, when you get really learn into understanding Egyptian hieroglyphics, you will begin to see when in the hieroglyphics and the reliefs, they're talking about manifestation. A lot of the times you'll see with astral traveling or with them traveling through the cosmos or with them talking about dreams, you'll see the stars and you'll notice that solar boat. It's a lot of times when you have to look at these glyphs to understand when they're talking about manifestation and talking about using power, using the power of energy to manifest. It gets really deep. But, the Greeks got into it and they understood it. And this is one of the most deepest hidden things in the occult is understanding manifestation, and that it's replete throughout the ancient world, especially in ancient Kemet. So, they gave us the Kabbalion. And we get the Kabbalion, which really is getting into manifestation. Now, it says here, one of the original accounts of how to turn thoughts into reality was the Kabbalion. I'm going to skip down here. The Kabbalion was written by an Egyptian sage called Hermes. And we know Hermes was an Egyptian sage. That's the Greek Hermes Trismegistus, copying off of Thoth. That's why these teachings are called Hermetic teachings. Like many others who have been interested in manifestation, Hermes tried to make sense of the principles behind this phenomenon by classifying and ordering what he thought was going on. And that's important. It says what he thought was going on, and understand when you're getting into the Kabbalah and it's just as coded as the Bible. They are not just going to put all these secrets in the book. So when you read in any of these esoteric books, you got to understand they coded. They code them all. And only a select few is really going to understand what it's actually talking about. Now, there's many of the release we see from ancient Kemet with them playing music. And you got to look at this and understand when we see a lot of these rituals, we always have the playing of music. We could take that back to voodoo. And even in voodoo, when you see them manifesting the Loa, remember it's music playing. It's always music playing. They're beating on drums, the music gets intense, and they're summoning the Loa. This is manifestation. They're manifesting the energy they need to complete the task of the voodoo spell. And different Loas do different things. So it's different music that they're going to be playing to summon different Loa. So we see this not just in voodoo, but in ancient Kemet, where music is being used to manifest. Now we know the Kabbalion has like the 7 principles of manifestation. You have all these other things that you can read about when it comes to manifestation. That's talking about, there's different steps that you have to follow to properly manifest or what have you. A lot of this stuff is spooky bullshit, and it's not really getting into the heart of, true manifestation, but giving you stuff, that they think you should follow. Some of the stuff is good and important, but not all of it. It's more to it. But, in the Kabbalion, you understand one of the main things is having faith. No doubting, no worrying, no wishing about the energy of manifestation, which is knowing. Plain and simple. And I say that to get you to understand that knowledge is everything. And when I say it, when you have the knowledge to do something, guess what? It gets done. Because there's no ignorance there. You have all the tools, the knowledge, the know-how to complete the task. So it's going to get done. Plain and simple. So you have confidence when you know. You know the answers to the test. You go in there confidently, take the test. You know how to fight. You ain't scared to step in that ring. You know how to play basketball. You ain't scared to hoop. So on and so forth. Knowing is everything. The knowledge is power. It allows you to have the confidence that's going to, allow you to basically manifest more to a clear victory or a clear achievement of the goal that you're striving for. One of the things you got to understand, as I said, this information is worthy of this knowledge. This whole system of the mystery schools and its teaching and passing down this information seems to be everything. And it was corrupted. And it's one of the things that H.P. Blavatsky gets into in the secret doctrine. So this is really deep. And I want you guys to listen carefully and understand what's being said. So it says, as taught in the secret doctrine, it were the Manasutras, which is Sanskrit, I believe, Hindu or whatever, the sons of Manas, sons of mind, who overshadowed the human vehicle 18 million years ago. When the time arose, they kindled in us, like one candle lighting another, inflaming our minds. We became self-conscious beings, awakened by the gods. That was perhaps the first help, at least as far as we know. Coming from the lodge of wisdom and compassion, the first encouragement to continue our evolutionary journey, and do not think lightly of this, for those divine beings helping us meant that they became active in regions which were far beneath their normal state of consciousness, which makes sense. The story has been told in many myths. Prometheus, the Greek titan who gave humanity fire, the blazing intellect, was chained by Zeus to the rock Caucasus. And wasn't the serpent in Genesis, symbol of the Manasutras, punished for giving humanity the capacity to think? His legs was taken from him, so he had to swing, crawling on the ground, all symbols that these divine beings descended to a for them far inferior realm. We are talking about the third root race, which we're going to get into eventually, not in this video, which lived millions of years ago. In a distant epoch, there was intuitive knowledge for everybody. There was a natural respect and acceptance for those beings who know more than we do. Just like young children respect their parents, and with the help of those divine beings and their direct pupils, the loftiest societies were erected. But eventually, man descended more into matter. And the fourth root race, selfishness. Desire and greed became the main characteristics. Men focused on living in their personalities. They lived in the illusion that they were separated from others. The divine wisdom was more and more abused for selfish purposes. The mysteries. So there came a time that knowledge had to be veiled. The mysteries were installed. No longer was everybody allowed to receive the teachings. Only those who proved to be pure and unselfish had the right to be initiated in those schools of wisdom and compassion. In the collected writings, part 14, in the chapter The Origin of the Mysteries, H.P. Blavatsky gives abundant evidence and many quotes from all the sages of antiquity, how highly esteemed these mysteries were. They exerted an uplifted influence on society. For although only those who had proven to be unselfish were allowed to enter the greater mysteries, there were also the so-called lesser mysteries, which ensure by means of myths, parables, and rituals that the spiritual light of mankind was not extinguished. Those mysteries or mystery schools were in all parts of the world, and supporting all of them was the force of the Lodge of Wisdom and Compassion. All arts, all knowledge, genuine religion, philosophy, and science had the mysteries as source. Now, in this new age, this information is going to be lost. It's going to be gone. And what's left is not going to be taken seriously or even really cared about. You know, and that's the thing. And people don't really get how deep this is really going to be, but you can see what's happening. Information, as we know, is going to be taken down. As I said, this type of knowledge we won't have anymore because it opens the mind too much. It allows the mind to move forward and not, be able to be controlled. And this is something that they're not going to want later on, as we can see right now. So this stuff will disappear. And, our children's children is going to grow up into a super technological age that is far advanced and, is going to be further and further away from what we know as spirituality and, just the human experience. Everything's going to be so much more digital and interactive digitally, not spiritually or physically. And this is where things are headed. They're seeing that they can control, people, with electronics. They can destroy the black family with entertainment. They can destroy black economics with entertainment. They can destroy black unity with entertainment. This is what they have done. So we look at how things are controlled now. Technology is controlling everything. They can control the energy of the people with technology. So the news comes on, tells us something, we take it in, we believe it, and we run with it. Scrolling through the TV looking for Sports Center and seeing on the guide that Stargate was on. So the beginning of Stargate is cool. After the beginning, it really goes downhill from there. But when you look at the beginning, when he's getting into all the information and adding everything up, that is real cool to watch, and it makes sense to a degree. But it was one part that I overlooked because the movie was so old and I didn't go back and see it because I was like, okay, these people are supposed to be Egyptians. You know how they always show the Egyptians not being black. So, I never really paid the movie no mind. So started to watch it and remember, they find the Stargate in Egypt and he's going through the symbols and he basically see the hieroglyphic symbols, which he knew, but it was symbols that he didn't understand. They couldn't figure them out. And then eventually he figures them out and he realizes that these are not hieroglyphs. These are actually star constellations that's on the device. So when they plug in the constellations, that they come up with a seven sequence, 7 depictions or what have you to get the Stargate to open. Now remember when he opens, get all 7 into the device and they open it. Remember the Stargate when it first opens, there's a big poof of water that comes out of Stargate. And that's when it hit me. And I was like, so much stuff just came rushing to my head, except for the physics of it all, which is the tough part. We won't get into that. But the water came rushing through the Stargate. And I was like, wow, this is it's crazy. It's right here in front of our faces the whole time, and we were overlooking it for obvious reasons. So you had that happen, and I just began to remember, the ancient Egyptians and looking at all the depictions of the waters of Noon. Talked about this when they give us the creation story of the ancient Egyptians. It's the waters of Noon, and they're telling us that everything came out of the primordial waters of Nu. And it's just something that we just didn't think about. So the primordial waters of Nu, how they were depicting it was space is like a liquid. But when you first get into it, as I told you guys, they were basically saying that it was like the oceans, because the ocean is the dark abyss. Space is supposed to be the dark abyss. Connecting the two was tough. Not perfect. I don't get everything right. But this one I just simply overlooked. And it's right in front of our face. But what they have shown us, many depictions, is them traveling through space on the solar bark or the solar boat. And it makes sense. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Why would they depict space as them traveling and having to use a boat? Right? So it's like, wait a minute. I've seen this in a depiction before. And when we look at the depiction of the creation story, when we look at Newton Jeb and we see the solar boat traveling through the sky, and it's traveling, which that's supposed to be the sky, the arch, the blue arch, you see the stars. So it's telling you as if, wait a minute, space is a liquid. And that's how you have to travel, astral travel through the solar boat. That's a key we're going to get into in a second. The solar boat, why they call it that. It's going to make a lot of sense. So looking at that, and then just seeing what's coming up. So we had Avatar, The Way of Water. Then you had the Black Panther movie with the water people, this whole underwater civilization or what have you. Now we have The Little Mermaid. And I'm looking at all this and it's like, what is going on with all these water themes, movies that's coming up? Like, what is that? We'll touch on that later.